how do we approach goal setting differently? There's all these sorts of things. 10x is better than 2x, or the 7 habits of, you name it. There's a book, about it. How might we approach things differently, especially with regards to our business, if we're going to take these into consideration?
None of this information, when I do it with clients, goes into a database that I use to extrapolate off of. It is simply so that you understand and are in agreement with how your life is actually structured. What is your lifestyle? Where do you spend your money? Okay. So to do that, we have a sheet, and I can make it available.
Can I hop in and just,
please,
maybe get a curiosity for the listeners? You're talking about for them personally, how the family essentially spends money.
Yes.
Can you just expand on why? I bet there's a lot of business owners, because I'm coming around on this sort of perspective, but I know I used to think, what does it matter how we spend money over here? What would you say to someone who's of that mindset?
Yeah, so I get it. And there are two main reasons why we start with this and why it's really important to know. So one, the total of how you spend your money is an input into your equation. It's part of your freedom calculation, right? It's what leaves your house every month. So you got to know what you're spending every month, right? And I'm not talking about it from a budgeting standpoint, okay? I'm not asking you to change and cut back. This is just about being honest with where the money goes, because you need to know in totality what you have to spend or what you need to make to be able to spend that. The second thing is that often the way we spend our money right now is not actually how we'd want to spend our money. So a common example is that people will spend X amount on travel. And when I talk to them, and just to look down the road a little bit, they will tell me later on, I really would like to spend more on travel, or I'd like to put more away into my kids' college savings account. Okay, you can't really know that unless you know what you're spending right now. Otherwise, you have no context to what more or less is, right? Those are relational terms. So we do have to start with your personal, because it is why we're doing all of this. It's a quantification of your family's lifestyle. It's not the only thing, right? Like you spend time in different ways, but your money is a fairly strong reflection of how you spend your time. If you eat out, if you have a lot of eating out expenses, it probably means you're entertaining a lot. If you go to a lot of concerts, that usually means that type of music or comedy is important to your life. That's okay. And this is why it doesn't matter to me how you spend your money. It's just so that it's authentic and real to what is your life.
I just think it's an important distinction, right? Yeah. So getting clear on where we're at, what's next?
Yeah. And one quick thing before I go that, imagine you wanted to lose some weight to get healthier. One of the things you'd probably go, I need to know how much I weigh right now. Same thing, right? We're just quantifying what the status is right now. Okay. So once we've done that, the next step is to understand what the business component of that is, right? So now you know what your lifestyle costs, if you will. And for most small business owners, the money or revenue or salary that is generated from their business is what funds that lifestyle. They may have other sources, maybe a spouse works, maybe they have some real estate that contributes money every month. But usually it is the business that is generating most of it. And so what we then do is we look at what is the business, again, on an average month doing? What does it look like? How much revenue is it generating? Where are you spending your money? Now, that is basically like we're looking at the P&L and the balance sheet to help quantify that. And for some people, they're pretty up to speed on that. But for a lot of people, they aren't, or the data that provides that isn't of very good quality, such that we can't really draw the right conclusions from. And so that's the thing that we want to identify is if we have bad data, we're going to make bad decisions. So we have to understand, do we have the proper starting point to be able to analyze the business and what it needs to do? Okay. So we help them summarize that down and understand and distill it into something that's easy. We don't give them pages and pages of P&Ls. We're trying to simplify it down to a snapshot so they can very easily see it on one screen, what the business is really looking like to them. Then we add in any sort of other sources of income, like I said, spouse, real estate, investments, things like that. And then what we show them basically is this snapshot of what their lifestyle looks like, meaning at the top of this funnel, you have what is your income, right? So from all sources, we then factor in what do you owe in taxes based upon that income that we need to account for. And then we get to a fork in the road where we have, this is what you have available to spend on your life. How much of that is going to your lifestyle? How much of that is going to savings? And then what is left over or not left over? And we help illustrate for that for them in that standpoint. And what I would encourage you at home, you can do this for yourself. It is essentially, part of it is understanding, do you live within your means, right? That is a basic, like you can draw that conclusion fairly quickly in looking at that snapshot. But regardless of what it looks like, it helps anchor people to what life actually looks like right now. And I will tell you that most people, educated, not, doesn't matter any element of this, are not very good at estimating what their budget or their lifestyle looks like in the moment. They don't have a great concept of what they're spending, how much the business is generating. They have rough ideas, but by and large, it's not very accurate. So we help them get to that point. So that's like the first step in all of this process. There's some baby steps in there, but that's really where we're trying to get to. It's anchoring you to where you are right now.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm not surprised by how many people just run their business by feel. I was one of them for the longest time. And then once you're on the other side of it, the clarity that comes from actually knowing the numbers.
Intuition is a very common guide for strategy within a business. And unfortunately, intuition runs out at some point. It can only really take you so far. But the challenge and the danger with intuition is that until that point, it feels like a really strong driver. You feel like you can trust it because it continues to be the right thing until it isn't. And then if you're not prepared for that moment, all the things start to break down very quickly.
Yeah, it's a lot to hold. Usually it increases with scale, and that's a lot to hold, right? Intuition is great when it's smaller, but as you continue to grow, the numbers give that solidity.
So once we've anchored to where you're at now, what we want to do is reorient you on what you actually want your life to look like. So we will go back to the initial breakdown that we help people classify their spending to. What I consciously tell them is, I am not here to tell you to spend less. I'm actually encouraging you to tell me what you want to spend more on. That if we snapped our fingers, how would you want to reflect your lifestyle and your spending? Would you like to spend more on travel? Would you like to contribute more to your kids' college education? Would you like to save more? Do you want to pamper yourself more? Do you want to hire someone to help clean your house? Like, none of this is off limits, right? It's all about what is most authentic to a lifestyle that would be representative of freedom, of happiness, of joy. And so we help recalculate that. And that then feeds into our, what we're going to refine that funnel again, if you will, right? That snapshot, because now what we show them is, okay, this is what it looks like with that lifestyle. So now we have to back solve into what your business is going to do to fund that lifestyle. And this is where the work really starts, if I'm being honest, right? Now we're really getting into understanding, what are you selling? How are you selling it? What are the costs associated with that? And we will spend a significant amount of time here with them to really break this down and make it as simple and relatable as we can. Because what we're ultimately going to do is, from this process, identify 2, 3, maybe 4 things that we are going to get hyper focused on, and we are going to create accountability for, so that we can be successful in that. Knowing that as we achieve these goals, these stepping stones on the ladder, the rungs, that we will be getting closer and closer to the roof. And that if we're focused on these and successful in them, that success will also yield itself in the rest of the parts of our life, in the business and in the personal side. And then the last step is, we work very closely with the owners to stay on top of those goals. And we refine them, we will adjust them as necessary, but we create accountability. And I think this gets overlooked a lot in the process of running a business, which is, running a business can be lonely. It just can. Like, you feel very isolated. Oftentimes your friends are not business owners. Maybe your spouse isn't working in the business. It's hard to talk to them about what the day-to-day aspects of the business are, because they don't really understand it. Unless you're a business owner, you don't really understand other business owners, to be honest. And so we act as that accountability coach, that workout buddy, that when you say you're going to be at the gym at 1, if someone else is there, you're more likely to show up and be at the gym at 1 and do the workout, right? Same thing here. If you're going to show up, we're going to meet with you weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, whatever the cadence needs to be for you to be successful, then the greater likelihood there is that we're going to be successful in achieving those. And that's the part where you need to do all 3. You can't just shortcut it. You can't skip ahead. You have to understand where you're at. You have to reverse engineer what you have to do. And then you have to get hyper-focused and be accountable to doing those steps. It's very unfulfilling And it, like I said, it's dangerous because the most common reaction is to double down on what you did because you assume more is the answer. And a lot of times when we're going through the process, what we discover is the business doesn't need more. Maybe it needs the same, maybe it needs less. It's just about reorienting the business in a way that is reflective of how the business owner wants to financially be rewarded and how they actually want to show up in the business. Both of those things have to be satisfied for ultimately the family behind the business to be successful and free.
Well said. I think this lends itself really well to a round two somewhere down the line, because I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface. We like scooped into the top of the chaff. 2 questions for you. First is, if people want to get in touch with you, stay more connected, follow up, where's the best place for people to go?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Nolan Bradbury. We have a website called numbersforfreedom.com, which is really an overview of the problems and the solutions that we were talking about today. So if you want to go read more about that and understand it, I encourage you to do that. It's numbersforfreedom.com, or our company website, bradfieldco.com. You can go check that out. You can contact us through that. It's real human, so please don't spam us in the contact box. We will be responding to each one. And I would encourage you to reach out. Like if any of this resonated and you felt like, man, that feels like where I'm at, set up a time for us to talk. And we'll go through and help you understand like where you're at and how you might approach this. It's not a sales call. It's really more about helping you orient yourself onto what you need to do. And if it means you want some help, then we can look at that. And if it doesn't, then hopefully you at least get some advice on how to start the process for yourself.
Absolutely. We'll link all that up in the show notes. Nolan, last question for you. In your opinion, what is the secret to scaling a business?
I'm going to be biased here. I think scaling a business, if you want to do it, you have to understand what you're scaling to and why you're scaling in the first place. Because there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it. But unless you understand what the driving force is behind it, kind of like in this goal setting process, what is it that you're trying to get to and why are you trying to get there? Because without that, assuming you get there, you're going to be at this mountaintop without any real idea of why you're there and if you want to be there in the first place. And so I just think that's an important process that often gets overlooked in terms of moving the ball forward.